because the image is very strong to me of like the sun setting, and it's like the local townspeople are like, maybe they're farming and stuff, and they're doing things, and they see the farms and they gather their kids, and they all wander to the grocery store, and they're turning on all the lights, and they chain the doors. Maybe they're all just chatting, and they glance over, and there's just like these like ominous glowing-eyed figures at the window, just like staring. Hello, and welcome to StoryFellas, the podcast where we make stories and we break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm your host, Zach Lovelace.
And we're here to tell more stories like we always are.
Yeah.
You can't stop us. They've tried.
They've tried to stop us. They tried to kill us. They tried to discredit us. They tried to make us go crazy. None of it worked.
You might say, who are they? And that's none of your business. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. Never mind that. That's a different podcast.
Oh no. Oh. Just
For those of you who are just audio, Tommy has been killed. He's been strangled on screen. I'm watching the light drain from his eyes.
Oh no.
They're coming for me next.
As you sip on your drink, you're just like not doing anything.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on. Send me to my God.
Happy spring, Zach. I don't know if it's spring.
It is
or not.
It's officially spring.
It's starting to feel. It's feeling like spring now, and well, you're down where it's hot all the time,
and I got a black car already. So I can
it.
feel that it's hot, but also there's so much pollen all the time. I have to use my windshield wipers to get the pollen off.
Oh,
it's that it's pretty bad.
I remember those days for me where it was just like laced. My entire car is laced in pollen.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be getting worse. Like from my childhood to now, there just feels like there's way more pollen than there ever has been. And I don't know if there's some sort of like tree people, some arbor people that can speak up to this issue, but stop.
Maybe it's more bees. Everyone's concerned about the bees, but the secret are there's too many bees.
Yeah, and the bees and the trees. Everyone's like, ooh, save the trees. Ooh, the planet's green. Ooh, we got to be the planet. We care about the plants and the animals. Shut up, okay? First of all, shut up. If there were less trees, there'd be less pollen, and my nose, I have a very tiny nose, okay? You see this nose? It's like when God made my me, he used the smallest setting possible. That's it. That's the end of that rant.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Well, are you ready to tell some stories today?
Yeah,
Zach?
I'm ready. I'm ready, man.
Sweet.
Are you?
Awesome. Well, I have an idea.
Ready. You don't seem ready, man.
I'm not ready, man. I'm not locked in.
He's not locked in.
Gotta lock in here. Oh, if I open my eyes wider, does it feel like I'm locked in?
He's very locked in now. Okay. I
have a real simple idea, but we're gonna spice it up with some rolls. Not dinner rolls, but dice rolls.
Ooh, spicy.
So rolls. First off, yes, spicy red blah blah blah. What you said? I need you to roll a dice for me, Zach, and I need you to roll starting out a D10.
A 10 decided. All right, I rolled a 3. I rolled a 3. A 3, my favorite number. Okay. I like it. And I need you to also roll. Let me just count this These
up.
dice are hot in my hand, dude. They are so hot.
They're so ready.
What am I rolling over here?
You can roll another 10.
They're leaving us. Oh, another 10? Okay, cool.
They're leaving. Yeah, sorry, I need to count.
I rolled a 5.
But this thing's not numbered.
That was a 5.
A 5. Okay.
We're doing some cool video stuff for those who are just listening.
Yeah, Zach's just
being an idiot.
Doing some really cool video stuff. Okay, I can't remember when I wrote some of these things, but I'm like, oh man, this is just funny random stuff. So the first thing that you did not roll for.
Okay, yeah.
And it's very simple. I said that starting out is I just want this story to take place mostly that one of the main locations is a grocery store.
Cool.
Because I was thinking, I don't know, that could be fun because everyone has to go to a grocery store. It's a frequent place that people keep coming back to. I think a lot of fun could be had there.
Oh yeah.
The first thing you rolled for was genre, which you have rolled a drama.
Cool.
A grocery store drama.
Nice.
And the other thing you rolled for was a random requirement. Which the random requirement you rolled is there's a character that is talked about a lot but never appears in the story.
Okay. Cool.
So they can't, that's just like a side thing if we can fit it in, bonus points. But people reference this person a lot, but they cannot be an actual character that appears.
Cool.
They just are someone who's alluded to. So.
All right. God it is.
Go. God appears at the end. And
we're at an Amish grocery store. And they're waiting for the good Lord. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, cool. So a drama. Dramas are fun. Dramas so just white bread genre. You know, there's just whatever you need it to be. We're gonna get some pretty crazy stuff.
It can still be funny. It can be funny too, a little bit. It can be
sad. You know, it can be historical. Yeah. You know, there's lots of stuff you can do with the drama. I think the main thing, though, the main plot is human relationships. I think that is what a drama is. So, you know, love stories, romance, betrayal, the classics. The classics of storytelling here. So it's interesting because we don't have this is a new territory a little bit for us because we have no plot. Like usually we have a scrap or we have some other type of thing that gives us a plot restriction, so we can just whatever.
We can do whatever we want. We're confined to this location, which naturally, being in a grocery store, my mind goes to a couple of things immediately. It's our protagonist could work at the grocery store. They could be an employee, whether they're happy there, they're depressed there, they're sad there, whatever. We could go a route of something dramatic happening at said grocery store, which draws something back. We could go supernatural where there's a ghost in the grocery store, something like that.
Yeah, we do like our ghost.
Although we do like our ghost. Or the person just appears or they fall in love. I feel like a drama has to have, I don't know, some love relationship thing. So someone
there's just a central relationship. It can be a father-daughter. It could be father-son, mother-son. You know, it can be cousins or whatever. I think you lose a little bit of the intensity of relationships the less related they actually are. So like best friends, that could be interesting. You know, you get a little like Edgar Wright type stories where it's like two best friends, one who's like usually really immature. Those have like a really strong dramatic core. They have a lot more genre things working around them to make it interesting though. But yeah, okay. And I feel like the whole thing has to be in a grocery store means they're trapped.
They could be trapped, but I feel like it just needs to be the central place. So even if there's a few scenes, like for instance, if we wanted to go a heist movie or they think there's treasure in the grocery store, clearly the grocery store is the main thing. They have to keep coming back. They have to do research on the grocery store. Like it is central, but we can have a few scenes cutting away. But something about this grocery store has to be the plot.
Yeah.
Or the reason they're there. But we could also play with they can't leave because that could be, I don't know, a weird, interesting drama.
Yeah.
It's like a couple that every time they try to walk out the doors, they black out and they wake back up in the deli aisle.
Yeah. I didn't order 6 pounds of boar's head turkey. I think that's fun. That's very sci-fi. I really do want to stick to the genre in this one. I do want that to be like an iron bar thing that we don't break out of.
Okay, so you want to keep it grounded in reality?
Well, I think we can push reality a little bit. But I think the central things that are happening, like that we actually care about, are human relationship oriented.
Yes.
Yes. So it's not necessarily like, escaping a portal or something like that. Like all that stuff. That stuff could be interesting. Also, I mean, we could go completely. I knew there was like a famously bad movie called Food Fight, which was all of these. It was an animated movie about all of these brand name foods that came to life, and I guess interacted in some way. So you could do something like that. That's that Seth Rogen like Hot Dog Party or like what is it? Not Hot Dog Party, whatever. It's something like that.
I think it might be a hot dog party or something.
Sausage Fest.
Sausage Party.
Sausage Party?
I think so. Hold on now.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think it's Sausage Fest because that's the phrase. It's like, this place is such a sausage fest.
Sausage Party film. Yeah, no, Sausage Party.
Okay.
2016 film.
Might have been why it wasn't that good.
You're like, if the name changed,
but yeah, I have no real interest in animate food.
Yeah, me neither. I feel like Classic Tommy wants to put some sort of twist.
Yeah.
Some weird long-term bicentennial man, like a guy who spent 200 years at this grocery store trying to rekindle his relationship with someone or something. Sounds interesting.
That does
or some
sound
guy
interesting.
who keeps going through alternate versions of his life in this grocery store.
I think you could easily cut to like every interaction that two people have had in a grocery store. That's kind of interesting. That feels very short filmy. Where, just like the bag boy and a girl and just like every interaction. And they're just like, in different outfits every time, but it just time jumps and you see she's like in a relationship and that's part of like an awkward interaction in the beginning. And then she's not in one and then she's in another one. And you just find creative ways to kind of show this. And the guy ends up like becoming the manager or owner of the grocery store. And, they're like older at the end. She's divorced or whatever. And it's finally like, I choose you. Anyway,
it's classic drama.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a classic Zach Lovelace throw a wrench and throw something crazy in there and see if it sticks. And you can veto if this isn't the right track, but I think we could definitely still fit the drama human centered thing in this. What if it was a quote air quotes the last grocery store on Earth, in the sense of it's post apocalyptic, it's boarded up. And people find refuge at this grocery store.
Okay.
And they have like tons of supplies still. They have defenses. Maybe people go out and they collect more food and bring it back, but it's like a safe haven place.
Sounds like
rather
The Mist.
than.
I'm
not seeing. Is that with a Marky Mark?
No, it's with Tom Jane.
Okay. Do they hide in a grocery store?
Yeah, for like the majority of the movie.
Oh, well, let's just tell The Mist then.
Yeah, I was going to say a zombie story because, we haven't seen a good cinematic zombie story in a long time. Like I would say maybe World War Z, but I've rewatched that since it first came out, and I don't think it really holds up that well.
What do you mean by cinematic zombie story?
So not television. So not The Walking Dead, that, and even then The Walking Dead, no offense to any Walking Dead fans out there, is just not as good as it could be. And I just have higher aspirations. That first season with Frank Darabont as the showrunner was amazing. And just because he was spending more money on something, I mean, in today's streaming world where you have, Netflix and Amazon, the most expensive show of all time being the Lord of the Rings show, it just makes it laughable that Frank Darabont got pushed out when he's the reason that first season was awesome. And I remember watching that on AMC, and it was like the kind of, oddball tipping point. Wasn't Breaking Bad, wasn't Mad Men, but then they went for this zombie show, and it was really working. And it produced a lot of a few stars anyway. I really like John Bernthal still because of that. But anyway, that's my Walking Dead shtick. I'm actually going really light on these people because I think that show is total buns. Especially as has devolved into that. Ugh. Yeah. Anyway.
I don't have any dog in the fight because I never saw the show, but I know that a lot of people were fans of it.
They eat it up, dude. And I get it because there's really nothing else like it on TV until The Last of Us came out. And I think when that came out, the first season of that, everyone was like, oh man, this is the best zombie show ever. So I feel like something in that vein, whether it's zombies or we can get kind of creative with the thing that's keeping them in there, I would be okay with that. The Mist, it's like a portal opens up and all of these kind of eldritch Lovecraftian monsters come out and they're horrific, crazy, like spiders with human faces and all sorts of weird stuff.
I like the idea of something zombie, some sort of monster creature, something. And maybe we're not confined to the grocery store. Maybe it's a town. Maybe it's a small town. And the grocery store is just a big central hub for the town's people.
Okay.
Clearly, because they're coming to get supplies. They're coming to that's where a lot of the story takes place, a lot of the conversation. And I really like we're rule guys. I really like this idea of there's some sort of creature or zombies outside the town, and for some reason they can't just like come in, you know? Like there's something is withholding them from just barging in, and but it is still dangerous. Like you can't wander away from town. Maybe something needs to be done in town to keep these things away. Some sort of ritual or something.
Here we go.
Okay.
Two different monster
All right, here we
ideas.
go.
I'm a big monster guy. Either.
Yeah.
Because have you ever heard the moth joke by Norm Macdonald?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the punchline to that joke popped in my head. We were like, for some reason they didn't, well, it's like, because the lights are on. That's not to ruin the Norm joke, which is a masterpiece. But the idea that for whatever reason, the lights are on at this grocery store. And it can even be like a classic kind of grocery store, not very big, like a Winn-Dixie or something, or a Food Lion. And it's just because the lights are on like that. I don't know. We could play that into like the tagline of the grocery store even.
I really like the image of people, if this town's really small, like one street light small, like Cars, the movie Cars, small town. Where people, because the image is very strong to me of like the sun setting, and it's like the local townspeople are like, maybe they're farming and stuff, and they're doing things, and they see the farm sky, and they gather their kids, and they all wander to the grocery store, and then they go in the grocery store. This is like the opening of the film, and all the townspeople are in there, and the workers are there, and they're turning on all the lights, and they chain the doors, and then everyone kind of hunkers in, and maybe they're all just chatting, and they glance over, and there's just like these like ominous glowing-eyed figures at the window, just like staring in. Like you can see them on the outskirts of the light in the street lights.
Oh yeah.
I like that a lot. This kind of vampiric monster thing.
So that's actually, keep that in mind. The light being the thing that keeps them away, or daylight. That it's either mothmen of some kind, which is kind of cool. Like we've heard of Mothman. But Mothmen, and they have plagued this town or whatever, or maybe the whole world, or mole men. So both would have a reason. Like I guess moths are attracted to the light, so that's a little bit, why would they want to go in there? But you could play with it. You could soften the association. They don't want to like just be in the light, but they want to just like stare at it. That kind of puts them in a certain state. Yeah.
I think you could sell that idea of like that's why they just stand and stare. But if there was no light, then they would become more bestial, and they're like they're soothed by the light.
I like that a lot.
And maybe
whereas like mole people are just adverse to the light. They tunnel up every night, and they're ravaging the town looking for food and stuff. And if you're out and about, you're going to get gobbled up. I always mole people are just cool, man. Mole people are so cool.
Yeah. We gotta, whichever monster we don't do. I know we've done, I think, Bug York City. We had a Mothman in that one. But I like the idea of not sentient Mothmen. Like they're just beast Mothmen. Is really
humanoid.
scary.
They're humanoid. Obviously, that's why they're Mothmen. They're not like just giant bugs. But they're not, they can't really think. They're just like the things from A Quiet Place. You don't see them really thinking.
I think you could. Plus, they're just, the idea is scary. Like someone is on the outskirts of town, and then they don't get back in time, and you hear like this fluttering, like the sun dips, and you hear like big, giant wings flapping, and you understand. Like if they're not subdued by light, then they will just feast on whatever they find.
That's cool. I like that. So, playing with this Mothman race and the obsession with the light. I think we could take this to the next level, because I don't want it to be like The Mist. The Mist being, that they're stuck in there, and they're just trying to survive, and it becomes about the drama of really it's more horror, but like how the humankind civilization falls apart, all the agreements that these people have because they get kind of witch hunty and whatever. That we give ourselves a drama, but with a thin veneer of science fiction around it. So there's just like one morning in middle America, this prototypical Food Lion grocery store is there. And this is in like 1970 something. Okay. Then the next day it's gone. And
the
it's just
whole.
disappeared
What do you mean?
completely.
The whole food line?
The
is
whole
gone?
grocery store. Yeah, the whole grocery store is gone, and it looks like it had just been lifted out of the ground. And so what ends up actually happening is that everyone in the grocery store, including the grocery store, have been abducted by this moth person race and have been taken back to their planet and or dimension or whatever. And it's more about the people who have been stuck in that situation and now are in basically a human zoo rather than it being about like, oh, we need to fight the beasts or whatever. It's just this is just the situation that we're in, like, you know, and then we can kind of zero back in on the drama aspect where, okay, you know, you get a small town and there's only so many people and now they're light years away or whatever. And yeah.
I get some Slaughterhouse-5 vibes from this, but because that happens, and at that point, if they're smart enough to bring them home, they could be somewhat intelligent, because that would be interesting if like the people could have occasional conversations, and it's like not even like there's not this like, oh, they're the enemy, like obviously they were like, we want to go home, and the Mothmen are just like, oh no, we need you here to study you, like they're not like rude or abrasive, but they're not gonna bring them home.
I think
either.
the most we'd want to be is that they are just ominous and they don't ever speak to them. Like they can't speak the same language. And so I think
they're just outside in the looking glass and watching them.
Yeah. It's just these watching people or moth people. And I think maybe an engineer ends up stuck in the grocery store and then just is like, I think it has to do with the light bulbs in this place. Like they are a specific make of this light bulb that got made in our factory, in our town, in the 50s, and these things have never gone out. And we've heard of those light bulbs that are like, they've been going for 100 years or whatever. And that's the whole thing, is like the lights never go out here. And so it's less about it being a grocery store other than the fact that it's like communal. And so they saw that as being a place where people continually go. So like, oh, we'll just take the whole thing.
Yeah. I think the grocery store aspect gives them food and resources, which is nice. Like if you're gonna get abducted and taken to another place, might as well be in a grocery store. I mean, like you've got all this food and cans of stuff, and I think that could be a factor of like, how long is this food gonna last? Because maybe they try to communicate. They're like, we're gonna eventually run out of food, and the Mothmen don't really do anything. They just keep watching.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
I think. So let's kind of hone in on a few characters.
I was gonna say, let's get in some characters, man.
Because I think we could have, I keep coming back to like a 20-something guy, girl. Maybe one's a bag boy, one's a customer that comes in. He likes her. She doesn't really know him, and you can have a little relationship there. I don't think it's just it feels like an entourage movie where it's not going to be just one guy as much. Maybe it could be, but it feels like it's more about like a cast of characters and them figuring things out.
I agree. I think the central dynamic, though, the central relationship is going to be a romantic one. I think that kind of fits the human zoo thing. I think I've seen that before as well, where two people get abducted and the aliens are saying to them, you have to mate. You are each other's mate. So we put you in the zoo together. We hope that you do mate. And then it's just like they're studying why humans don't do that. Why this woman would be like, no, I'm not going to mate with this guy. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I'd rather mate with the Mothman.
Yeah. And that's where we could push it into, crazier, kind of more satirical territory where you have more alien races. It's like a reverse Men in Black, where they are on an alien planet. That's
like so they're not being studied by just Mothmen. It's like a zoo where you have all these aliens.
That's where I'm pushing
through.
It. That's where I'm pushing it. Not just the
people.
Mothmen, but the Mothmen are the observers. They're the scientists. They're the ones the zookeepers, if you will. And all of these like children aliens come up, and you can really say something about this town that was from the 1970s USA that went missing essentially, with this zoo setup that we have. So again, it's more about the pressure cooker of the human relationships. You'd be way more bonded with the people who you got brought with, even if you didn't like them. So town bully, town drunk. These are all like tropes that you could pull from. I like a big fat butcher guy, the guy that worked at the deli and he's just like a middle-aged guy, you know, an Ernest Borgnine, if you will. If you are of good taste and know Mermaid Man, the guy who voiced Mermaid Man, was a great American actor named Ernest Borgnine. But just imagine him. He's in a film called Marty in the 50s where he plays kind of an ugly loser that wants to find love. And we could play it's like Marty in space where he's stuck and he's in a grocery store. Maybe he's the only guy. Maybe it's a bunch of women. That kind of makes sense for who would be shopping there at that time in the middle of the day or whatever, whenever the whole thing got abducted. So it's
Marty,
one man.
Marty, the butcher. Okay. And then, if he's the one guy, do you picture him being the protagonist? Like it's him, like he's the main guy we're following?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sold on that. I just like that archetype. I like that character. Now we could have another guy. We could have another kid, you know, Bart Simpson style, like 10-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of, this either would have a lot of characters and maybe like cliques, like you have background characters in this, because sometimes the grocery store is pretty full. Like there could be,
it depends on when
20
it got
to 30
abducted.
people. Yeah. Or maybe it was abducted. It had to be abducted at night when all the lights were really prominent. That's like
true.
A late night thing. So there's not
or
a lot
early
of
in the
people
morning,
in the grocery
I guess,
store.
depending on
either or, but that would make it so less people are there. So maybe you have,
I think the town drunk
10.
has to be in there. Yeah, I think 10 people is good. The town drunk, because there's only so much alcohol. And I think that's kind of interesting. He has a grocery store's worth of alcohol, but how long is it going to last him? And he has whatever issue. I kind of like him as the main character. He has a clear wound that you could work on where why is he a drunk? And can he overcome this? And can he help them get back?
I think that's interesting. I'm trying to picture actors.
I like
that
those
would
two guys.
be
Like,
the butcher and the town drunk.
Yeah. I'm kind of feeling town drunk. Let's see. Who has that kind of bad boy broken, but not necessarily like hot? Because I want to avoid like a Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Who I think could pull it off.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think he could pull that off totally. But yeah, I don't know.
You're talking about actors, famous people who aren't hot.
Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of them. Steve Buscemi.
Oh, Steve Buscemi's so good, man. He's such a good actor.
He is. I think I could see him being the butcher. I could see him being, a young version of him being the drunk. You don't want to make him super old.
So
let's give him some names, though.
So we got butcher and we got drunk. You got anything off the top of the dome?
I think Dennis for the drunk.
For Dennis the drunk.
Dennis for the drunk. And then Roy for the butcher.
I was going to say Cliff, but I like
Cliff.
Roy too.
I like Cliff a lot better. Yeah.
You can do Cliff. Cliff and Dennis.
Yep.
Cliff the butcher, Dennis the drunk, and we'll fill out some more of these people. I do picture. I just want to throw two ideas. They might not go anywhere. One idea is the idea of at some point, whoever is the rebel, the antsy guy who's in this place, going through the backs lockers and stuff, like find someone's gun.
Oh, of course.
And then creates a scene. I think that would add some drama of a guy trying to shoot these aliens and stuff. Also, we did have the requirement, if it helps us, of someone being talked about but never present in the film. And I think if we can't make it happen, no pressure, but that might be some fuel at some point along the journey that would help us figure out how people relate to each other.
I think that's very easy to do, especially since we have 10 people who've been abducted. They could easily be talking about one person who's back on Earth. What would this guy do? Or even the owner of the grocery store. That's a pretty easy, like, technical win, I feel like, where you have, Mr. Bates. Oh, Mr. Bates isn't here. This is Mr. Bates' store. We have to take care of it.
Yeah. And maybe he's a really good boss or something. But then other people, I imagine if we have 10 people, the butcher's one, and I don't think we need to name all the 10, but I'm just trying to flesh out. We've got a couple bag boys / girls. Maybe like 2 or 3.
It depends on the era. Because if we go 1970s, I do feel like it would be bag boys.
Okay.
And the women would be housewives probably. Not necessarily, though. You know, you could easily have, like, you know, a woman who owns a store on the same strip who just walked over there to get something at the end of the day.
It could be funny if there was a love interest. It's a bag boy in his 20s, and it's a mother who brought her like 21-year-old girl to help her grocery shop, because I think that's kind of funny,
Like teach her
dramatic, because
how to
like
grocery shop?
or just like she just wanted help or something. I don't know. I don't have it all pieced together, but I'm thinking of the drama, the tension. Get off my back, Zach.
Yeah. Whoa.
No, but like this guy who falls in love with this girl, but the mom's like always present in the zoo. Like,
sure, yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
that's a weird tension, or that might be too much of an obstacle for them to figure out.
I think something else would be a pharmacist, although pharmacies kind of had a standalone thing back in the day. Are we okay with it being a back in the day type thing?
I could be fine with that.
That sells the.
I do like the
whole
idea of there being some sort of doctor, like I know a pharmacist, doctor, medical someone in there.
Yeah.
Whether we have that be the pharmacist, or maybe there is like a doctor who is running in before his shift at the ER,
At the hospital. Yeah.
and yeah, I like someone who's medical being there, because that seems like that could help in a lot of plot points. Someone gets sick and they're able to add some exposition to the situation.
Or someone could be a nurse. They don't have to be. We don't have to be a full doctor.
I think like super early or super late makes total sense for a nurse or a medical person in the ER to be there, because they would be working weird hours and they'd be shopping at weird hours. So maybe a nurse. Yeah, let's have a nurse there. So we got butcher, we got drunk, we got nurse, we got bag boys. Maybe 3 of them, 2 of them. I don't know, depending on how early it is. Maybe you have like an assistant manager, not the owner of the grocery store, but like an assistant manager.
Mr. Bates said that we're not allowed to touch the alcohol.
And then the drunk's like, "Have you had alcohol before?"
Yeah.
Like it's like a young kid.
Actually,
he's like,
yes.
It's like Shaggy.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I do think a nurse is great female character. She comes in handy. You have Mr. Bates, who's the owner of the grocery store. You know, and then the
Mr. Bates is not there though.
Yeah, Mr. Bates is not there.
They find Mr. Bates' gun. They're like, I didn't know Mr. Bates rolled
Mr.
like
Bates
this.
keeps a gun in his drawer. I've played with it before. You know, I guess that's Dickie. Dickie, the store assistant.
Yeah, I like that. A few other questions to ask. I think we're fleshing out this cast of characters, and I don't know if we'll get I want to nail down kind of a plot of like what happens. But also before that,
you need the key relationships. That's what determines what happens.
Yeah. Are you thinking very little interaction with the Mothmen, with any, like, do they ever intervene? Like, is there something that would make the Mothmen intervene, that they would step into the area?
A light bulb breaking.
I think that. Oh, like to study it or to.
Yeah. Again, I think that the real reason they stole the grocery store is because it was made with this very specific fiber, you know, and this is what one of the characters says, you know, about, you know, Mr. Bates put these lights in 50 years ago. You know, exposition Dickie over here, and he's given us, you know, that plot point, that idea that they really care about the light. And he says like, "Oh, the light is perfect. The light is perfect." You know. Yeah.
I think something, because I imagine there's whoever the rebel is, because there's got to be a rebel who causes hubbub in the group,
and we can have a straight up like biker guy.
Yeah, he could just be a biker guy who's there. Because having something that they know will make Mothmen come in, I think would be like, that would be a plot point where they're like, I'm going to bust this light, and when they come in, I'm going to shoot them or something like that. Where he gets the gun. because that would be interesting if at one point that just happens. Like, who knows? Like, maybe shortly after they get there, one of the lights go off, and it's like, so all these Mothmen come in, and they're like looking up, and they fly up, and they're like looking at it, and they're just inspecting it, and then poking at it. Maybe they have whatever alien clipboards look like. They're like taking notes on computers, so they know that will trip the doors. Like, the doors will open if a light breaks. I think that's a nice little Chekhov's gun to plant, where people will know, oh, people are going to use that later. Which, you're on an alien planet. I don't know what the goal is, but I think someone who's stir crazy would just want to be like, I'm just going to get out those doors.
Want to get out. They want to see if there's. They don't really know that they're on a different planet. They don't know all that stuff. They just know they can't leave. How does it physically look? I'd say it's probably pretty obvious that they're on a different planet. It's in a big open expanse like Mars, something to that degree, or something really dark and foreboding like in a laboratory. Or maybe the Mothmen are giant and it's really like they have the thing is really small.
Oh, gosh, that's really scary. If you, like, okay, so this is the image I have in my head is you have your grocery store with your observation windows and or just windows of the grocery store, and like literally a mile away, like there's just this towering Mothman, like they super giant, and like they are like the size, like you see them fully in the window because they're so
they
tall.
Can hold the thing in their hand. They hold the full grocery store in their hand.
Maybe there's different size. There's like giant Mothmen, and there's little ones that will come inspect the stuff, and then there's all the normal size aliens that are less big.
I think that's interesting. It's very cartoony to just that big.
Yeah. As we're exploring plot, as we're trying to hammer down this plot, I think we need to figure out one protagonist and kind of story circle them a little bit, try to kind of get to the bottom of what they're wanting. And is there a way out of this situation? Like, can they, does something happen that would make the Mothmen bring them back?
Oh, maybe knocking out all the lights.
I do think that would be a natural thing that someone would discuss. Once they figure it out, I think the thought would be like, hey, if we knock out all the lights, maybe they'll bring us back. And other people are saying, well, or maybe they'll kill us.
Yeah.
Like, what if there's no lights? What need do they have for us anymore?
I do think they need to be humanoid size just to be able to establish. If they were that big, they wouldn't be able to ascertain that the light was the reason that they were there.
Yeah. That's fair. I do like the idea of a giant Mothman, but I think it makes more sense to have them normal size. They're like slightly bigger than people.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And they have all sorts of powers and whatnot. We can get into that. But I kind of think Dickie might be our protagonist.
Do you think so? Really?
I kind of think so, just because he makes the most for a romantic thing. And obviously the way that I'm depicting him, he's quite dweebish, and could really use the arc of rising up to save the group.
I think we would need to make him less the character you're making him. We'd have to dial him back if we're going.
What do you mean?
Also not. I'm also because he feels like a caricature.
Yeah, that's true.
But I also think
he's Timothy Chalamet. He's Timothy Chalamet.
Put him in everything. Either I think it could be him. I also feel like it could be the drunk, and maybe he's not a drunk. Maybe he's like a homeless guy or something, or like a guy down on his luck. I think there could be, because instead of playing the lead guy / dweeby love interest that needs to be remasculated, he is like it's funny because that is what he would need to do. Like, he needs to step up. But Dennis would be a bit more along the lines of a father figure, or someone who, like, he would not be like the young lead man. I think he would be a bit older. He'd be in his 40s, but then he is the least likely to hold the group together. But then some reason he finds the strength to do that. But I don't know if that's a stretch. But I'm down to hear more of your pitch on Dickie, on how he becomes the protagonist.
Yeah, I just picked a young guy, able-bodied. You're really pushing the plot into, if you have an older butcher be the main character, what is the plot, dramatically speaking? Again, I think that the central conflict of the story has to be relational, not the Mothmen. So they think they want to get back to Earth, but what they need is actually X. That's the drama.
So okay, that's interesting, because I'm looking at a story circle here. And audience, if you don't know what a story circle is, search story circle. It's a very nice tool for helping you navigate a character and what they need to go through to get to some closure. Yeah. Because the beginning of a story circle is you establish who they are and they need something, which usually is not what they need. It's what they think they need. Are we treating them, kind of our entourage's characters, as kind of a hive mind? Like them unanimously think they need something? Or do you think we want to center on
That's a good point.
one
I do
person?
think it has to be one person.
Okay.
I don't want it to be a one versus many type thing. I think it's pretty clear that they can't get away for the most part. Although I will say, thematically, what we're dealing with here is light and darkness, and that the Mothmen study light. And we're getting biblical here, but men love darkness. And I think that's kind of an interesting place to start, where we either have someone who has baggage, has a wound, like the drunk. So I'm kind of zeroing in on the drunk being the main character again. And I like him being a formal town drunk, not necessarily a homeless person, although they go hand in hand, vagrant type thing. But he did something really bad. And that's the thing. And confession is good for the soul. That's the light, the cleansing light. And so he needs to come into the light. And that's actually what will get them out. What does that look like? I'm not too sure. Him laying down his life, him redoing whatever it was that he did, whether he was a coward before and now he needs, it sounds remasculator, of course, but he needs to step up and be a protector in some way. Maybe he was in the war, depending on the time that we take him. If it's in the 50s that they get taken, or the 70s, it could be the Korean War, it could be the Vietnam War, whatever. And we have our drunk main character is in that thematic space of, willfully drowning himself, wanting to stay in darkness, and then, has to come to the light, has to get serious, has to choose the good. And that's where it's actually kind of interesting to make, what I was going to say was to make him like the only guy. And so all these women are like, you're the only, you're the strongest one here, and you're kind of squandering your strength by just drinking all the time. And so it's really about him and the drink. I think that's an interesting dynamic. It's about him beating the drink. And there are a lot of famous alcoholic movies. Some of them, like Leaving Las Vegas, he doesn't beat the drink beats him. And then there are other ones like Hoosiers, where the Dennis Hopper, who this character is named after, if you want to get into my mind of why I named him Dennis, he beats the drink to come back and be like a really great assistant coach. So he's got to rise above that. And maybe he's stuck in there with a bunch of church ladies or something. I think that's kind of interesting.
I don't think they all need to be church ladies.
They're not
but
all,
I do
I'm
want to
saying,
I want to explore the idea of him being the only guy, because I think that is interesting. And because it does, it even the call for him to step up and protect and provide and like you said, he's the strongest one there and he's squandering his ability. I think that's interesting. And then it is more of an internal, it's this really supernatural surrounding exterior, but the whole plot is interior. It's all about him.
Yeah, I think
I like that.
That is just good storytelling. And I don't say that to toot our own horn, but just to knit those things together is really good. Not that we've done that successfully, but to have the external thing be the trial that really has an internal component to it. So And it's made even more apparent by there being an actual external internal thing, where the internalness of the grocery store or just the liquor store or the liquor part of it. I actually don't know, in the 70s, was liquor sold in grocery stores? Maybe, I don't
I don't know.
know.
I'm sure there's some sort of alcohol though, beer or something.
That's true. Wine, beer. Yeah. Your kind of typical stuff, but not necessarily anything hard. But you got to think about when he goes into the grocery store, or maybe the grocery store is being robbed and this guy was actually robbing it. And then it gets abducted. So he's there at night because he knows there's not going to be a lot of people there. That's why he has a gun. Maybe he actually shot somebody before they got abducted. And so there's that whole scenario where it's
a lot. That's a lot of heaviness for this guy to deal with.
That's true.
I think we need to have some reason. Like if he shot someone before that happened, then I don't think these ladies would turn to him.
Well, that's the point. Yeah. They turn to someone else for a while, and then eventually it comes back around where it's like, we actually do need him. So we need to work together.
I think that could work.
The Mothmen need to eat them, though. They need to do something bad. It can't just be watching them. They need to feel like they can get away, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to thread the needle in my head of something that would make the Mothmen just bring them back home, and something that the Dennis could do at the end, that he rises to the occasion and does that will the Mothmen kind of see and ponder and then bring him back. But I don't know what that is yet.
So I think if he's a drunk, if Dennis is a drunk, he needs to throw the last drink instead of choosing it. He needs to get rid of it. And so that needs to be the thing that he makes like a Molotov cocktail and throws it at them.
Okay. I think that could be...
Or throws it into an air shaft, and that's what breaks, breaks the bond.
Yeah. Or I was going to say, if the moth people don't realize their capacity for violence or danger, it's like maybe that's what motivates them to put them back. Because they're like, through their perspective, we didn't know these guys were this powerful. Or like someone makes a Molotov cocktail and blows up like several Mothmen. Yeah. They're like, put these guys back, and then they put them back. And then it does cause, I think something like that could work.
Yeah. I'm also
because if you had a zoo and there was like a meerkat and then it shot a fireball and killed a person, you'd be like, we got to get rid of this meerkat.
Well, yeah, they would just kill him though. They would just gas it. They'd shoot it, Harambe style, just shoot into the tank. Like, how hard would it be? That's why
that's how the movie ends. All the Mothmen just shoot into the grocery store.
That's why, maybe it's less of a zoo and it's more about the light. But it has to be the zoo. You realize that they would have to sleep in that grocery store with the lights on? Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I would imagine, and I think it'd be funny if the Mothmen, I don't know if this would make sense, but they tried, like early on, to turn the lights off to go to bed, and the Mothmen will immediately like send one of the Mothmen in, and they like scurry around and they flip the lights back on, and they just like scurry out.
See, that's
like,
what I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that tone where it's not necessarily life and death.
The opening to this movie I pictured was, let's say it's Dennis. He's our protagonist, so it probably needs to be him. It could be one of the girls, because I picture some teenage girls, some adult women. Could be another guy if we really wanted to. But I picture this, because I kind of don't want to see them get abducted. I want them to already be abducted.
Yeah.
So I like this idea of like this guy, like this drunk, and you just think he's a drunk. Like he's like sleeping in the booze section of this grocery store that's fully lit. And it's like he stretches and he gets up and he like goes and he makes like some instant coffee. And he's like does that and he like pours some booze into the instant coffee. And like he like walks up to the window and like he's just like sipping his coffee and he walks up to the window. And as the camera pans, like it pans and there's like a 9-foot tall like creature just staring at him. And he's just staring up at it. And like you get very quickly like, whoa, there's weird creatures here, and also these people are not affected by the creatures. They have been here for a while and they don't really care about the creatures at this point.
Yeah, you pick up in media res. The action has already started, and we're having to just play catch up, which is cool because we don't need to see the abduction thing. I do think that we can play with the idea that they really aren't anywhere. It's just total darkness around them. It's like it doesn't look like they're on another planet. It's just total darkness, and these beings come out of the darkness. It's like, well, we're not turning the lights off.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I actually like that a lot more because it gives them the hope of escaping. Because if they're just on a clearly on another planet, that's really, you're like, where are we going to go? There's just a bunch of aliens out there. That if it's just darkness, like constant darkness outside, just at one point they're like shopping and all the street lights go out and there's just darkness and these creatures are outside and they just stay outside. Do you think someone tries to leave? Like, I think that would be an interesting plot point. If someone's like, I'm just going to go out there. I think it's just, and they either never return or they come back and they're driven mad or something like that. There's like something, they are not home. Yeah. Like they are in some sort of like trance. Like there's something supernatural about the darkness.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not literally lifted up and put on a planet.
Exactly.
They can't go out into it. And then that also eases the thing because like rather than the Mothmen put them back onto another planet, if they just determine to leave and then the darkness subsides, then they can just leave at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
I think I like that too.
Mothmen, man. Mothmen
are cool. Light and darkness. It's cool themes. Dennis, the drunk, making a Molotov cocktail. If they just fight them off, they fight back at them. Because I think the gun thing could backfire if you have the kind of trigger happy dude, the anxious neurotic guy goes out there. Maybe it's Dickie, oh, I'm not going to let him get me. And he gets Mr. Bates's gun and then the gun gets taken from them. The darkness descends around them. And maybe once it lifts, it's like nothing ever happened. They've been there for like
maybe 100. We go back to, what were you saying?
They've been there for like 100 days or 100 years or whatever. And in their time, but then they come right back.
Yeah.
It makes the Mothmen more supernatural than it does alien.
Yeah. I think the supernatural thing is interesting because it could be, we're kind of going back to the beginning of our story. But we'll see. We'll see where we land. Because the Mothmen being kind of ominous and dangerous, because originally, like when they're on the other planet and they're zookeepers, they weren't as dangerous.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not afraid as long as they're in the grocery store. But I think as we reach the climax, I think this idea of like the outer lights like going out and the Mothmen actually like come into the building and they'll only come in as far as the lights go. And then like the lights keep on like going out and they keep coming closer. I think that's like a very intense, exciting, because that's like the moment Dennis has to step up and he has to like protect people and figure out what he needs to do.
I got it. So I think the way out is in, or the way in is out, whatever, where we do see them creep in and the army of Mothmen, or maybe the 10 of them or whatever that are watching them. Somebody gets eaten or taken in the beginning. You never see what happens to them. The lights then, the crazy person amongst the group, Dickie, ends up popping off and with the gun is shooting out the lights. And eventually they're in the back and all the women, I think our buddy Cliff has died at this point as well, shot by Dickie. And the nurse like tried to help him, so on and so forth. Come to find out that Dennis stands up. He takes the mantle and is able to fight Dickie and get the gun. And because Dickie gets obsessed with this idea that they want darkness. If we make it all dark, they won't. They want the light, essentially. That if we let the light out, then they'll take it and they'll leave. So he gets really off his rocker. But maybe actually that actually solves it. That actually solves it. But he's gone crazy. He went too far in his thing, or maybe I don't know. You do see what I'm playing with? That the idea is that to get rid of all of the light, and that's actually gets rid of any reason for them to be there at all.
Yeah, I get that. It gives me Bird Box vibes. This idea of gaslighting people into the point of saying like, this is what we need to do, when everyone's like, that seems like the most dangerous thing. But then like slowly, like he's convincing people, and maybe he convinces some people, and he's like, yeah, if there's no light, they won't be around. They're here watching the light. And then other people are like, no, the light is the only thing subduing them. If there's no light, then they'll come get us. But yeah, I like the idea. He's shooting the lights out. The Mothmen are actually encroaching. Just these big. I picture Mothmen as these hulking, broad-shouldered beasts. But it could be creepier if they are very slender, like Slender-Man-esque with giant big wings. That for as thin as they are, they're super strong and super powerful. And maybe that's like, we can take him. Like that's what one of the early people say. And they go out and they get ripped to shreds, or they get dragged into the darkness.
I like the idea that Dickie shoots one and it like freaks out and is, and its wings go up and all these like waves of light come out from underneath its wings. And maybe we see that it dies, but it's like letting out all of this light. So they're light eaters.
Oh, okay. Okay, so well, I'm trying to think how that can tie into the end, because I'm thinking the end is Dennis with a Molotov cocktail. I think that image is very strong, and he blows up a couple of Mothmen, and if he blows up the Mothmen and when they die, they exhibit like a ton of light. Is there some sort of narrative way we can tie that? Oh, you got it. He's poking his head.
I'm poking my head. That's where my ideas come from.
All right, tell me, how does it tie together?
Okay, so you might not like it, and I feel like we have kind of busted the drama thing. Maybe not.
I think it'd still be drama. It's still about. It's hard to like hit all of his beats.
Yes,
while we're trying to build this world, but I think it will be about his internal struggle.
Yes,
more than anything.
Dickie destroys all the lights. Dickie gets eaten because you realize, oh, they eat the light in you. They're soul eaters. Which the light of our eyes, it's the last thing they're going to eat. And I don't know how this necessarily solves the problem, but I think it'll help us get there. That Dickie has a Molotov, and has that last bottle, and that becomes like a thematic symbol throughout the thing. Is that he has the last
Dickie
bottle.
Or Dennis?
Oh, sorry, Dennis has the last bottle.
Okay, cool.
Or maybe one of the church ladies has it and has been keeping it, and he wrestles her for it for a second at the end. Because the last light starts to flicker. It's like the light in the break room or over the deli or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's starting to flicker. And so he's like, give it to me. And she's like, no, this isn't a time to do that. And he's like, no, it's time. And he takes it and he makes a Molotov and he smashes it and burns himself, turns himself into a torch and runs. And they all chase him.
Okay. That could work.
Now, where we go from there, I'm not too sure. What popped in my mind is a little bit of an Interstellar ending where he runs off into the darkness and just starts tumbling as he's on fire. And it's in some sort of like fifth dimensional type thing. And the Mothmen are around him. It's almost like Gandalf falling and the Balrog is after him. It's like that, but less epic because it's just a drunk guy who's, oh, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. But the self-immolating is really interesting to me, that it took an outside fire to purge him. I think that is a real strong image. And it's him taking the final thing that was poisoning him, that was corrupting him, that he was ingesting and saying no, and actually is using it to save people. I think that is a really powerful image. It has to just actually work. So maybe they have a path of salvation opens up for them, and it's like he needs to buy them time.
Okay. Piggybacking on that idea, because I do like, I was going to say he blows up the Mothmen, they blow up into light and they eat each other. But I think him sacrificing himself makes sense. Here's what he does. This is my pitch. Piggybacking on yours is he has the gun from Dickie. Maybe there's like one round in it. and he says some final words to the ladies, and he shoots out the light, the last light, and he busts the cocktail on himself, like you said. So there is no more light. Like, he is the last light, so that everything, all the Mothmen are drawn to him. And as he like beelines it into the darkness, like all the Mothmen are like flocking to him, and as they leave, the grocery store comes back into daylight or something. Like,
That's
darkness subsides when the Mothmen leave, and they all chase him off, which is a very sad ending for Dennis. Like, he does redeem himself, but it is still sad. It's a heavy ending, but then
like
he
the
saves all the other
redemption.
people in the grocery store.
Totally. I like the not my life but yours aspect, and that he confronts his. It's strong. It's a strong image. It's strong symbols that we're playing with. We'd have to fall back on a supporting cast to then take it through the ending. So we're talking about our nurse character. So I think she's the secondary leader of the group, clearly the most level-headed anyway, is helping Cliff when he gets shot by Dennis, is trying to help or encourage and inspire Dennis to step up and actually do something. I think what ends up happening is, as the lights are being destroyed, in the back room, there's a crack in the wall, and through the crack, they can see light. So it's just one area where the darkness hasn't overtaken it, and so they need to bust through the wall. So they need to have enough time to do that, or something to that effect. That way, the nurse is doing that. The nurse and the other people. The little boy who stepped out to get his parents, something, and the other women, the church woman, not a lot of people, not as many people as maybe we even thought, maybe not 10 people, but maybe like 6 people. And they're just trying to pull the grate open or whatever it is. They see the light through the thing. And Dennis allows them to be able to do that. Or he busts it open himself. I don't know. However, those details, I think you can generally understand the contour of what it is that we're saying, that Dennis sacrifices himself. The nurse is then on the other side. And then they're back, and the sunrise happens, and you just have that cathartic moment where there's no trace of Dennis. There's no trace of any of the people left behind. I do think that other people who have been eaten should probably have soul problems as well. Like that soul corruption thing. So Dennis doesn't get eaten. He sacrifices himself. Where, not Dennis, who's the Dickie.
Oh, Dickie?
Dickie is prideful. They can all exhibit different things. And that actually is what ends up leading to them being destroyed, is that the light gets taken from them because they were misusing it. The light inside of them, that is. And again, Dickie chooses the crucible at the end.
It's a nice between the literal lights that the story is based on and the theme of internal light. It makes me think of the verse of like who takes their light and puts it under a basket. It's like, you gotta show who you are, show the light that's within you. I like it a lot, man. I think it's a really weird and interesting story that has like a nice heart to it.
It does. I love Dennis. Dennis is cool.
This is cool. I think I keep picturing the guy from Saving Mr. Banks. Have you seen that?
I haven't. Let me look it up. We might be thinking of the same guy.
Because the dad is a drunk in that Saving Mr. Banks.
Not Colin Farrell?
Colin Farrell, yeah. Colin Farrell.
I like Colin Farrell. Paul Giamatti's also in that movie.
Is he really? Oh man, you're right. He is.
I was thinking of Scoop McNairy.
Scoop McNairy.
Yeah. Once you see him, you'll recognize him, but he's a character actor and he's been in a bunch of things. I think he's even played this type of character before. Scoop McNairy. He's in a show called Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, I could see this guy being. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen this guy in anything, but he's got the look too. Yeah. Guys, look up Scoot McNairy. See for yourself.
Yep. He's a little got the damaged thing going. Could easily see kind of a bumbling aspect to him. And it looks like his name could also be Dennis.
Dennis. Nice.
Yeah, there's literally a picture of him. What is that show that looks so perfect? Anyway,
What?
Just whatever show this
You're
is.
just looking at more
Just pictures of Scoot McNairy is what I'm looking at. But Scoot, you're our guy. If you're listening, you're our Dennis. And I think it's that time of the episode where we land the plane with a title and our along the line segment. So Tommy, if you want to take a stab, or if you
Title?
yeah.
I've got an idea for a title. Okay. I have one version that is you're gonna rag on me for because it's like very stereotypical me title. But I also think it's applicable. No. Dennis. He's all grown up and he's killing mothmen.
He's a drunk.
He's a drunk. No, I was thinking, since it's so much about lights, I'm gonna phrase it in the way that you might not like it. But then I've got some alternate versions as well.
Okay.
But the light we hide is one.
Okay.
Because it's the whole story is centered about light, but then it's about Dennis like standing up, being the guy he needs to be, like exhibiting that light.
That's cool.
Which I know that I do a lot of titles of the blank we blank. But I do like the light we hide or hidden
the games we play.
The games we play, the stories we tell, or hidden lights, I think is interesting too.
Okay.
But I'm also, have you had any thoughts? I think light being in the title makes sense.
Light definitely. That's like thematically right up the alley. I was looking up cross sections between drunk terminology and lights to try and find if there was something in there. So maybe something like lightheaded. Also, I thought dark light was kind of an interesting title.
Dark light is interesting
because it
lightheaded
plays on that whole relationship, basically, not just dark / light. I feel like that's how a hack would make the poster, dark / light. But it literally is dark light. And yeah, that or the most simple title that I thought of was just Flicker.
Flicker is cool too, because that feels like that plays to the moths a bit more.
Yes.
I like Flicker. I like Dark Light's cool too. I think our something like also our light in the dark is interesting too.
Okay, that's very dramatic.
Which it is kind of a drama.
It's like Manchester by the Sea, style type.
I picture. I don't think we've done this before, but I picture when you said Dark Light or Flicker, either one of these. Flicker almost sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, I picture the poster for this movie is our guy Scooty McNairy or whoever, like standing in his disheveled clothes with like a half drunk liquor bottle, and so like he's just kind of like looking there and looking disheveled and like looking into the distance, and then like just barely, like it's just black behind him, and just barely you see like the like 9 foot tall, like just the hint of the creatures behind him. I think that's a cool image of
that is
because you get the idea. It's like, okay, this guy's a drunk, and there was like some weird supernatural creatures.
I even think the image that you brought up earlier, where you open up on him in the beginning of the movie and you see him looking through the window and it's looking back at him, that type of thing. I think a little bit of background, another reason setting it in the 70s or maybe even early 80s is that Dennis is actually a vet. And he's like, I remember people talking about these things, seeing them in Vietnam. And so adding a little bit of the back lore, or maybe that's something that Cliff says where he's like, yeah, in Korea, they saw him all the time. And yeah, they called them light eaters or whatever is Korean for light eater. But yeah, that playing with the light, I really like.
I feel like some of those were good. Do you like Flicker?
I do like Flicker.
I don't know if any of the. I guess the lights start flickering towards the end, and that's what they're afraid of. Flicker. How do you spell Flicker? I'm gonna have to type that.
FLICKER. Liquor, but with an F at the front. Oh, maybe that's how we spell it. It's like liquor, like a drink, but with an F at the front.
Oh, that's kind of fun. That's very indie.
Yeah. Oh, that's super indie. That's so indie that it's stupid. But it's a fun little Easter egg, if you will. I like Flicker as well because something can flicker on and off. So it can imply the light inside flickering on. It can imply the light outside flickering off.
And that's kind of like maybe his light inside is flickering. Like it might not be like a hard switch. Like it's going back and forth until it finally comes on for him. I like that. Dude, I like it. Stamp of approval.
Yeah, dude.
It's Flicker. It's time to close this thing out with an along the lines, something fun, something cool. Zach, do you have an along the lines to close out this film Flicker?
Yes. So it comes between the nurse character, who we never named, which is fine, and Dennis, our main character, the drunk. So as we previously established, somebody has this last liquor bottle that Dennis has been pining after. It's our nurse character. Maybe there's a little bit of romantic tension there. We don't know whether or not that they're actually going to get together, but this is a defining moment. As he's trying to steal this liquor bottle from her, she stops him and encourages him, admonishes him even, and says, I see a light in you, Dennis, whether you see it or not. Stop trying to put it out.
Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to StoryFellasPodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.